Hi readers! Thanks for joining me for our read aloud of Ghost Camp by R.L. Stine. Today I'll be reading chapters 10 to 14. If you're new here, visit the Wits website to catch up on weeks 1 and 2 of this read aloud series. As always, check out the set of discussion questions for this week's reading once I'm finished. Last week, the camp director Marv told the campers 2 ghost stories, one of which may be coming true, as Harry and Alex suddenly found themselves alone after a dark fog rolled into camp. Now, settle in for chapters 10 to 14. Reader beware, you're in for a scare. Chapter 10. I blinked, and blinked again. I didn't know what I expected. Did I think they would all appear again? Alex and I gazed across the circle in stunned silence. They had vanished with the fog. The campers, the counselors, Marv. A chill ran down my back. My skin still felt damp and cold from the heavy mist. Where? Alex choked out. I swallowed hard. A burned log crumbled into the purple embers. The soft thud startled me. I jumped. And then I started to laugh. Alex squinted at me, studying me. Harry? Don't you see, I told him. It's a joke. He squinted at me harder. Huh? It's a camp joke, I explained. It's a joke they probably always play on new campers here. Alex twisted up his whole face. He was thinking about it, but I don't think he believed me. They all ran off into the woods, I told him. They hid behind the fog and ran away. They were all in on the joke. I'll bet they do it to every new kid. But the fog, Alex choked out. I'll bet the fog was a fake, I exclaimed. They probably have some kind of smoke machine to help them with the joke. Alex rubbed his chin. I could still see the fear in his eyes. They probably do this all the time, I assured him. Marv tells the story. Then somebody turns on the smoke machine. The black smoke rolls over the campfire circle, and everyone runs and hides. Alex turned and stared into the woods. I don't see anyone hiding back there, he said softly. I don't see anyone watching us. I'll bet they're all back at the cabins, I told him. I'll bet they're waiting for us, waiting to see the looks on our faces. Waiting to laugh at us for falling for their dumb joke, Alex added. Let's go, I cried. I slapped him on the shoulder. Then I started running across the wet grass toward the row of cabins. Alex ran close behind. The moon sent a silvery path across the grass in front of us. Sure enough, as we came near the cabins, the campers all came running out. They were laughing and hooting, slapping each other high fives, enjoying their joke, a joke they play on new campers when the fog rolls in, they told us. I saw Lucy laughing along with a bunch of girls. Elvis grabbed Alex and wrestled him playfully to the ground. Everyone teased us and told us how scared we looked. We weren't scared even for a second, I lied. Alex and I figured it out before the fog cleared. That made everyone start laughing and cheering all over again. Ooh! Some of the kids cupped their hands around their mouths and made ghost howls. Ooh! That led to more laughing and joking. I didn't mind the teasing, not a bit. I felt so relieved. My heart was still pounding like crazy, and my knees felt kind of weak. But I felt so happy that it was all a joke. Every summer camp has its jokes, I told myself, and this is a pretty good one. But it didn't fool me. Not for long, anyway. Lights out in 5 minutes. Marv's booming command stopped the fun. Lights out, campers. The kids all turned and scurried to their bunks. I stared down the row of cabins, suddenly confused. Which one was ours? This way, Harry, Alex said. He tugged me toward the 3rd cabin down the path. Alex has a better memory than I do for things like that. Elvis and 2 other guys were already in the cabin when Alex and I came in. They were getting changed for bed. The other guys introduced themselves, Sam and Joey. I made my way to the bunk bed and started to undress. Woo! A ghostly howl made me jump. I spun around and saw Joey grinning at me. Everyone laughed. Me too. I like camp jokes, I thought. They're mean, but they're kind of fun. I felt something soft and gooey under my bare foot. Yuck! I glanced down and saw that I had stepped in a fresh puddle of blue slime. The cabin lights went out. But before they did, I saw blue puddles, fresh blue puddles, all over the floor. The cold blue stuff stuck to the bottom of my foot. I stumbled through the dark cabin and found a towel to wipe it off. What are these blue puddles? I asked myself as I climbed up to my top bunk. I glimpsed Joey and Sam in the bunk against the wall. I gasped. They stared back at me, their eyes shining like flashlights. What is going on here? I wondered. What are the sticky blue puddles all over the floor? And why do Sam and Joey's eyes glow like that in the dark? I turned my face to the wall. I tried not to think about anything. I had almost drifted to sleep when I felt a cold, slimy hand sliding down my arm. Chapter 11. Huh? I shot straight up, still feeling the cold, wet touch on my skin. I stared at my brother. Alex, you scared me to death, I whispered. What do you want? He stood on his mattress, his dark eyes staring at me. I can't sleep, he moaned. Keep trying, I told him sharply. Why are your hands so cold? I don't know, he replied. It's cold in here, I guess. You'll get used to it, I said. You always have trouble sleeping in new places. I yawned. I waited for him to drop back onto the bottom bunk, but he didn't move. Harry, you don't believe in ghosts, do you? He whispered. Of course not, I told him. Don't let a couple of silly stories creep you out. Yeah, right, he agreed. Good night. I said good night. He disappeared back to his bed. I heard him tossing around down there. He had a very squeaky mattress. Poor guy, I thought. That dumb ghost camp joke with the fog really messed him up. He'll be fine in the morning, I decided. I turned and gazed across the dark cabin toward Joey and Sam's bunk. Were their eyes still glowing so strangely? No. Darkness there. I started to turn away, then stopped, and stared hard. Oh no, I murmured out loud. In the dim light, I could see Joey, stretched out, asleep, floating 2 feet above his mattress. Chapter 12. I scrambled to climb out of bed. My legs tangled in the blanket, and I nearly fell on my head. Hey, what's up? I heard Alex whisper below me. I ignored him. I swung myself around and leaped to the floor. Ow! I landed hard, twisting my ankle. Pain shot up my leg, but I ignored it and hobbled to the door. I remembered the light switch was somewhere over there. I had to turn on the light. I had to see for sure that I was right, that Joey slept floating in the air above his bed. Harry, what's wrong? Alex called after me. What's up? What time is it? I heard Elvis groan sleepily from the bunk against the other wall. I pulled myself across the cabin. My hand fumbled against the wall until I found the light switch. I pushed it up. The overhead light flashed on, flooding the tiny cabin in white light. I raised my eyes to Joey's bunk. He lifted his head from the pillow and squinted down at me. Harry, what's your problem? He asked. He was sprawled on his stomach, on top of his blanket. Not floating in the air. Not floating. Resting his head in his hands, yawning and staring down at me. Turn off the light, Sam barked. If Marv catches us with the light on, but, I sputtered, turn it off. Elvis and Sam both insisted. I clicked off the light. Sorry, I muttered. I thought I saw something. I felt so bad. Why did I think I saw Joey floating in the air? I must be as creeped out as Alex, I decided. Now I'm seeing things. I scolded myself and told myself to calm down. You're just nervous because it's your first day in a new camp, I decided. I started slowly across the cabin to my bed. Halfway there, I stepped in a cold, sticky puddle of goo. The next morning, Alex and I found our Camp Spirit Moon uniforms, white shorts and white t-shirts, waiting for us at the foot of our beds. Now we won't stand out like sore thumbs, I thought happily. Now we can really be a part of this camp. I quickly forgot about my fears from the night before. I couldn't wait for the camp day to get started. That afternoon, Alex tried out for the camp talent show. I had to be at the soccer field. A bunch of us were supposed to practice putting up tents. We were getting ready for an overnight in the woods. But I stopped in front of the outdoor stage at the side of the lodge to listen to Alex sing. A counselor named Veronica, with long copper-colored hair all the way down her back, was in charge of the tryouts. I leaned against a tree and watched. A lot of kids were trying out. I saw 2 guitar players, a boy with a harmonica, a tap dancer, and 2 baton twirlers. Veronica played a small upright piano at the front of the stage. She called Alex up and asked him what song he wanted to sing. He picked a Beatles song he likes. My brother doesn't listen to any new groups. He likes the Beatles and the Beach Boys, all the groups from the 60s. He's the only 11-year-old I know who listens to the oldie station. I feel kind of sorry for him. It's like he was born in the wrong time or something. Veronica played a few notes on the piano and Alex started to sing. What a voice! The other kids had all been laughing and talking and messing around, but after Alex sang for a few seconds, they got real quiet. They huddled close to the stage and listened. He really sounded like a pro. I mean, he could probably sing with a band and put out an album. Even Veronica was amazed. I could see her lips form the word wow as she played the piano for Alex. When Alex finished singing, the kids all clapped and cheered. Elvis slapped Alex a high five as he hopped off the small stage. Veronica called Elvis up next. He told her he wanted to sing an Elvis song, since he was named after Elvis Presley. He cleared his throat and started to sing a song called Heartbreak Hotel. Well, it really was a heartbreak, because Elvis couldn't sing a single note on key. Veronica tried to play along with him, but I could see that she was having trouble. I think she probably wanted to stop playing the piano and cover her ears. Elvis had a high, scratchy voice, and the notes came out really sour. Sour enough to make your whole face pucker up. The kids around the stage started grumbling and walking away. Elvis had his eyes shut. He was so wrapped up in his song he didn't even see them. Doesn't he know how bad he is, I wondered? Why does he want to enter a talent show when he sounds like that? Elvis started to repeat the chorus. I decided I had to get away from there before my eardrums popped. I flashed Alex a thumbs up and hurried to the soccer field. Sam, Joey, and a bunch of other kids were already unfolding tents, getting ready for tent-raising practice. Chris, the counselor, was in charge. He waved to me. Harry, unroll that tent over there, he instructed. Let's see how fast you can put it up. I picked up the tent. It was bundled tightly, no bigger than a backpack. I turned it over in my hands. I'd never set up a tent before. I wasn't even sure how to unwrap it. Chris saw me puzzling over it and walked over. It's easy, he said. He pulled 2 straps and the nylon tent started to unfold. See? Here are the poles. Just stretch it out and prop it up. He handed the bundle back to me. Yeah, easy, I repeated. What's that noise? Joey asked, looking up from his tent. I listened hard. Elvis singing, I told them. The sour notes floated over the soccer field from the stage. Sam shook his head. It sounds like an animal caught in a trap, he said. We all laughed. Joey and Sam took off their sneakers and went barefoot. I took mine off too. The warm grass felt good under my feet. I unfolded the tent and spread it out on the grass. I piled the tent poles to the side. The sun felt hot on the back of my neck. I slapped a mosquito on my arm. I heard a shout and glanced up to see Sam and Joey wrestling around. They weren't fighting, they were just goofing. They both picked up tent poles and started dueling with them, having a wild sword fight. They were laughing and having fun. But then Sam tripped over a tent. He lost his balance, stumbled forward, fell hard. I let out a scream as the tent pole went right through his foot. Chapter 13. My stomach lurched. I felt sick. The pointed pole had pierced the top of Sam's foot, nailing his foot to the ground. Joey gaped, open-mouthed, his eyes wide with surprise. With a gasp, I searched for Chris. I knew Sam needed help. Where had Chris wandered off to? Sam! I choked out. I'll get help! But Sam didn't cry out. He didn't react at all. Didn't even grimace. He calmly reached down with both hands and pulled the pole from his foot. I let out a groan. My foot ached. In sympathy, I guess. Sam tossed the pole aside. I stared down at his foot. No cut, no blood. It wasn't bleeding. Sam, I cried, your foot! It's not bleeding! He turned and shrugged. It missed my toes, he explained. He dropped onto his knees and started propping up the tent. I swallowed hard, waiting for my stomach to stop churning. Missed his toes, I thought. Missed his toes? I saw the pole sink right into his foot. Or was I seeing things again? For the rest of the afternoon, I tried not to think about it. I worked on the tent. Once I got it spread out, it was easy to set up. Chris had us fold and unfold them a few times. Then we had a race to see who could set up a tent the fastest. I won easily. Sam said it was beginner's luck. Chris said I was definitely ready for the overnight. Where do we go for the overnight? I asked. Deep, deep into the woods, Chris replied. He winked at Sam and Joey. I felt a chill, thinking about Marv's ghost story. I shook the chill away. No way I was going to let myself get scared by a silly camp story. We had instructional swim at the waterfront. The lake was clear and cold. I'm up to junior lifesaver. Joey and I took turns rescuing each other. I didn't think about Sam driving the pole through his foot. I forced it from my mind. After the swim, I returned to the bunk to get changed for dinner. There were fresh puddles of blue goo on the cabin floor. Nobody made a big deal about them. I didn't want to either, so I tried hard not to think about them. Alex came in very excited. I'm going to be the first act in the talent show, he announced, and Veronica liked my singing so much she wants me to star in the camp musical. Way to go, I cried. I slapped him a high five. Then I asked, what about Elvis? He's going to be in the show too, Alex replied. He's going to be stage manager. I pulled on my white camp uniform and headed to the mess hall for dinner. I saw a group of girls come out of the cabins on the other side. I searched for Lucy, but didn't see her. I was feeling pretty good, not thinking about the strange things I'd seen, not thinking about the blue puddles of slime, the mysterious black fog, not thinking about the ghost story that Elvis said was true, not thinking about Lucy sticking her hand into the fire and pulling out my flaming hot dog, not thinking about Joey floating above his bed, or Sam jamming a thick pole through his foot, and not bleeding, not crying out. So totally calm about it, as if he couldn't feel it, couldn't feel any pain. I was starving, looking forward to dinner, not thinking about any of these puzzling things, feeling really good. But then Joey ruined my good mood at dinner and forced all the scary thoughts back into my mind. The food had just been served, chicken and some kind of creamy sauce, spinach, and lumpy mashed potatoes. I didn't care what it was. I was so hungry I could eat anything. But before I had a chance to eat, Joey called out to me from across the table. Hey, Harry, look! I glanced up from my plate. He picked up his fork and jammed it deep into his neck. Chapter 14. Ugh! I let out a groan. My fork fell from my hand and clattered to the floor. Joey grinned at me. The fork bobbed up and down, stuck in his neck. I felt sick. My heart started to pound. He pulled the fork out with a hard tug. His grin didn't fade. You try it, he called. Joey, stop it! Elvis cried from across the table. Yeah, give us a break, Sam agreed. I stared at Joey's neck. No cut, no fork marks, no blood. How did you do that? I finally stammered. Joey's grin grew wider. It's just a trick, he replied. I glimpsed Alex at the end of the table. Had he seen Joey's trick? Yes. Alex looked green. His mouth had dropped open in horror. Here, I'll show you how to do it, Joey offered. He raised the fork again, but stopped when he saw Marv leaning over his shoulder. What's going on, Joey? Marv demanded sharply. Joey lowered the fork to the table. Just kidding around, he replied, avoiding the camp director's hard stare. Well, let's eat our dinner, guys, Marv said sternly, without kidding around. We have a night soccer game, you know, boys against the girls. Marv moved on to the next table. A food fight had broken out there, and the mashed potatoes were flying. Joey mumbled something under his breath. I couldn't hear him over all the noise. I turned to see how Alex was doing at the end of the table. He had his fork in his hand, but he wasn't eating. He was staring hard at Joey. My brother had a very thoughtful expression on his face. I knew he was wondering exactly the same thing I was. What is going on here? Joey said the fork stabbing was just a trick. But how did he do it? Why didn't it hurt? Why didn't he bleed? Night soccer games are cool, Elvis declared. He was stuffing chicken into his mouth. The cream sauce ran down his chin. Especially boys against the girls, Sam agreed. We'll get 'em. They're pitiful. I glanced at the girls' table across the room. They were chattering noisily, probably about the soccer game. I saw Lucy in the shadows near the wall. She didn't seem to be talking to anyone. She had a solemn expression on her face. Did she keep looking over at me? I couldn't really tell. I ate my dinner, but my appetite had disappeared. How did you do that fork thing? I asked Joey. I told you, it's a trick, he replied. He turned away from me to talk to Sam. Dessert was little squares of red, yellow, and green jello. It was okay, but it needed some whipped cream. As I was finishing my dessert, I heard some squeals from the front of the big room. I turned toward the cries and saw a bat swooping wildly back and forth over the mess hall. Some of the younger kids were screaming, but everyone stayed calm at my table. The bat fluttered noisily, swooping and diving, darting from one end of the hall to the other. Marv followed it with a broom, and after only a minute or two, he gently pinned the bat to the wall with the straw broom head. Then he lifted the bat off the wall, carrying it in one hand. It was so tiny, no bigger than a mouse. He carried it out the door and let it go. Everyone cheered. That happens all the time, Sam said to me. It's because there aren't any screens on the mess hall doors. And the woods are full of bats, Joey added. Killer bats that land in your hair and suck the blood out of your head. Sam laughed. Yeah, right. He grinned at me. That's what happened to Joey. That's why he acts so weird now. I laughed along with everyone else. But I wondered if Sam was really joking. I mean, Joey did act weird. Soccer field, everyone, Marv boomed from the mess hall door. Check with the sports counselors. Alyssa and Mark will set up the teams. Chairs scraped over the stone floor as everyone jumped up. I saw Lucy waving to me, but Sam and Joey pulled me away. Into a cool, cloudy night, the full moon hidden behind low clouds, the grass already wet with a heavy dew. The counselors divided up the teams. Alex and I were on the second team. That meant we didn't play the first period. Our job was to stand on the sidelines and cheer on the boys' first team. 2 floodlights on tall poles sent down wide triangles of white light over the field. It wasn't really enough light. Long shadows spread over the field. But that was part of the fun. Alex stood close beside me as the game began. The girls' team scored a goal in less than a minute. Girls on the sidelines went wild. The players on the boys' team stood around, scratching their heads and muttering unhappily. Lucky break, yelled Mark, a tall boys' counselor. Go get 'em, guys. The game started up again. The light from the floodlights appeared to dim. I raised my eyes to the sky and saw fog rolling in. Another swirling fog. Mark jogged past us, looking like a big stork. Going to be another foggy night, he said to Alex and me. Night games are more fun in the fog. He shouted instructions to the boys' team. The thick fog swept over us quickly, driven by a gusting wind. Alex huddled close to me. I turned and caught his worried expression. Did you see what Joey did at dinner? He asked softly. I nodded. He said it was a trick. Alex thought about that for a moment. Harry, he said, keeping his eyes on the game. Don't you think some of these kids are a little weird? Yeah, a little, I replied. I thought about the tent pole going through Sam's foot. Something happened at the waterfront, Alex continued. I can't stop thinking about it. I watched the game, squinting into the drifting fog. It was getting hard to see the players. Cheers rang out from the girls' side. I guess they had scored another goal. Layers of heavy fog blocked my view. I shivered. What happened? I asked my brother. I had free swim. After tryouts for the show, he said. There was my group and a couple of girls' groups. Younger girls, mostly. The lake is nice, I commented. It's so clear and clean, and not too cold. Yeah, it's good, Alex agreed. He frowned. But something strange happened. I think it was strange. He took a deep breath. I could see he was really upset. Let's go, guys! Go, go, go! Mark shouted to the team. The glow from the floodlights twisted and bent in the fog, sending strange shadows over the playing field. The fog was so thick now, I had trouble telling the players from the shadows. I was floating on top of the water, Alex continued, wrapping his arms around his chest, sort of taking it easy, moving slowly. Stroke, stroke, very slow. It was free swim, so we could do whatever we wanted. Some of the guys were having a back floating race near the shore, but I floated out by myself. The water was so clear. I put my face in the water and I stared down to the bottom, and I saw something down there. He swallowed hard. What was it? What did you see? I asked. A girl, Alex replied with a shudder. One of the girls from the younger group. I don't know her name. She has short, curly black hair. She was under the water? I demanded. You mean swimming underwater? No. Alex shook his head. She wasn't swimming. She wasn't moving. She was way underwater. Near the bottom of the lake. She dove down? I asked. Alex shrugged. I got so scared, he cried over the shouts of the two teams. She wasn't moving. I didn't think she was breathing. Her arms floated up and down. And her eyes stared out blankly into the water. She drowned? I cried. That's what I thought, Alex said. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't think. I didn't think. I just dove down. You dove down to the bottom to get her? I asked. Yeah. I didn't really know if I was too late or if I should get a counselor or what, Alex said, shuddering again. I swam down. I grabbed her arms. Then I gripped her under the shoulders. I pulled her up. She floated up easily, like she was weightless or something. I pulled her up to the surface. Then I started to drag her to the shore. I was gasping for breath, mostly from panic, I think. My chest felt about to burst. I was so scared. And then I heard laughing. She laughed at me. I was still holding her under the shoulders. She turned and spit water in my face. Oh, wow, I gasped. Well, Alex, you mean she was okay? Yeah, Alex replied, shaking his head. She was perfectly okay. She was laughing at me. She thought it was really funny. I just stared at her. I couldn't believe it. She had been way down at the bottom for a long, long time. I let go of her. She floated away from me, still laughing. I said, how did you do that? That's what I asked her. I asked, how long can you hold your breath? And that made her laugh even harder. How long? I asked. And she said, a long, long time. And then she swam back to the other girls. And what did you do? I asked Alex. I had to get out of the water, he replied. I was shaking all over. I couldn't stop shaking. I thought... His voice trailed off. At least she was okay, he murmured after a while. But don't you think that was weird, Harry? And then at dinner, when Joey stuck that fork in his neck. It's weird, Alex, I said softly, but it may just be jokes. Jokes? He asked. His dark eyes stared hard into mine. Kids always play jokes on new campers, I told him. It's a camp tradition. You know, terrify the new kids. It's probably just jokes. That's all. He chewed his bottom lip, thinking about it. Even though he was standing so close to me, the swirling black fog made him appear far away. I turned back to the game. The boys were moving across the grass toward the goal, passing the ball, kicking it from player to player. They looked unreal, moving in and out of the swirling shadows. Jokes, I thought. All jokes. I squinted into the fog and saw something that couldn't be a joke. A boy kicked the ball to the net. The girls' goalie moved to block the shot. She wasn't fast enough, or she stumbled. The ball hit her smack in the forehead. It made a sickening thud. The ball bounced onto the ground. and her head bounced beside it. That's all we have for this week. Thanks again for joining me. Remember to check out the discussion questions, and I hope you have a great weekend.